to Future View on AI and Data podcast. I'm Obi, your host. Each episode brings expert stories, ideas, and practical steps for everyday global citizens, leaders, NGOs, and partners alike. And today, our special guest is Professor Seun Kolade. He's a professor of entrepreneurship and digital transformation from Sheffield Hallam University. Prof, please, can you give us a bit of background and maybe what you do with AI at the present?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Hubi, for having me on your podcast. My name is Seun Kolade, like you have rightly said. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship and digital transformation at Sheffield Business School here in the UK. I'm the author of two books on AI. One published last year, Artificial Intelligence in Higher Education, Innovation Strategies for Teaching and Learning, and the latest book, which is, Artificial Intelligence in Research, Application and Research Design, Data Processing and Analysis. So I've also written, several articles on generative AI in particular, and giving a few keynote addresses and, deliver conference papers and deliver workshop across the world, mainly to researchers, but also to practitioners and policymakers.
Wow, that's insightful and lots of work already on AI. And I was gonna ask, how do people get the books if they want to order? Is it on Amazon or anything?
I mean, the books are on Amazon. The books are on Amazon, but they are published by Springer, Palgrave Macmillan. So they can also search on Springer, websites. Is a reputable online, international publisher. But it's everywhere. It's on Waterstone, Amazon, and anywhere else you can. Yeah.
I guess. Okay. Let's go back to our question today. I mean, the first thing is just how can African countries build and retain local talents, local AI talents it's a bit scarce all over the world. So how do we, what usually happens? We train doctors, they come over and things like that. How do we train them and make sure we return them as Africans?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, and I think the first point to probably make there, because training them, retaining talent and training talent also assumes something that we need to first reflect on, that AI is a disruptive technology. It is going to shape the future of industry, in fact the future of society in many ways. It's already been applied across the whole spectrum, including in warfare. So there is an imperative, because the global economy, the 21st century knowledge economy, is driven by technologies, frontier digital technologies. And AI is the biggest disruptor of all, in my view. We've had, big buzz around, blockchains and the impact it has had and continue to have. But AI is just a step, above, because it cuts across, everywhere. So I think that's the starting point, because before you invest in talent training and talent retention, you have to first, reflect on why is it important. So I think, that cannot be overstated. Artificial intelligence broadly and generative AI in particular, which is just a stream, of the big church that artificial intelligence is important. And so it is an urgent priority for African countries to train talent. In terms of retaining talent, I think that is not quite a very straightforward answer there, because the digital disruption of the 21st century economy is already challenging the geographies, of economic activity. So there are a lot of young people who are in Lagos, in Nairobi, or Johannesburg, and they are delivering services for companies and organizations in Australia, in North America, everywhere in the world. And I think that is going to continue for the foreseeable future. So so that sort of shapes, the question around retention. So what do we mean by retention? Do we mean, that those skilled young people should no longer work for companies in Australia because they are paid? And many of them are not living in those countries. So I think it's a slightly nuanced conversation there about whether you want to retain them. But in terms of training, yes, definitely, I think it is important that we train the workforce. The margins are not as onerous. I think the African continent is an advantageous position because it costs less to train our workforce, and so we're able to take advantage of that structural transformation of the global economy, especially in terms of geography. That's a bit of a long answer, but the other thing I would say is that what is important is not whether we want to keep young people in Port Harcourt or Mombasa or in those wherever they are based, because you can't keep them, from working for companies overseas who require their talent. I think what is important is that there is an active policy drive and a will to ensure that we develop local industry, local AI industry. I think that is actually the locus of priority there. Not whether, we want to prevent, a skilled AI, trained person to work for Google or to work for Microsoft. They can, they will. But it's more about the we have African indigenous companies that are also making use of this talent, because that is the future. So we have, for example, AI, professionals, being used, the very cheap labor in this case, to actually develop AI algorithms, things around computer vision, because there is always a human behind the loop, right? So we there was a story years ago about Kenyan graduates being used to train AI algorithms. They are the human behind the loop. They are not paid much at all. Some of the content they are working with were harmful. But the real story is that they are being used to develop products and that are in the West, that are in other countries outside the continent. So, and the more those products are being developed, the more competitive they become, the more the gaps get bigger. So I think the priority should be, how are we using those talents to develop African indigenous product, rather than retaining the young people physically on the continent.
That's exactly what I mean. It just landed to my next questions. How do we how can we look those local talent, how can we use them to leverage and solve local business challenges? That's the next question. You just keep touching it. What we do,
Yeah. So thank you, Obi. I think there is one question that we again we have to first deal with is, what are we training them? What do we want to train them to do in terms of the local talent and content? I think the structure of the AI revolution is such that you have the just like you have in the oil and gas sector, to use that familiar sector as an illustration. You have the upstream, and then you have the downstream sector. So I think what is happening is that those who own the upstream, they are the ones that control the industry, right?
Yeah.
Because that is where the production is made, to stick with the oil and gas analogy. They are the one that owns the big equipment that can drill thousands of meters or whatever it is, into the ocean or into the ground. And then, you then have the retailers. You have those who drill, those who refine. So that is the upstream, right? And then the downstream. So in the same way with artificial intelligence, you have the compute system. So these big data centers that are capital intensive by and large. I mean, DeepSeek has sort of, upended that assumption, but still it's, capital intensive. You have to build, these large, data centers, the compute architecture. And then that is then the backbone, of the front end kind of use, the sort of thing that you do, whether with ChatGPT or Copilot and all of that. Now, a lot of what is happening on the African continent are with the downstream. So it's about the use of AI, the use of technology, the use of products that have been developed. What can you do with ChatGPT or what have you, and so on. But Africa is well behind in terms of the upstream, in terms of the compute. How many data centers we have? How many, what is the state of compute architecture, AI compute architecture of the continent? That is the frontier of struggle. Because if we are technology users rather than technology makers, then the gap is going to get wider and wider and wider, and we will sometimes maybe live in the illusion that a lot of our young people, they are trained, they can use AI tools to do this and that creatively, they can do this and that with various AI tools, but they are using products that are made by others. And the way the AI revolution, the AI architecture works also is that the more you use it, the better the algorithm becomes. Because as you use, you are also sort of co-producers of the AI training. You are putting data in, you are working with data, and then the AI tool gets better. So we're all of us contributing as users to making this technology better. But which indigenous African product do we have? There's none. So I think that is where the priority has to be, and you need policy drive in order to do that. It cannot just be with practitioners. It cannot just be with the innovators and the ecosystem. You need policy drive at the very highest level, not only of national government but international cooperation. Something that has to be, for example, at the AU level or the certainly minimum, the sub-regional ECOWAS and so on levels. So I think that is where we have to be putting the priority. If if the African continent want to compete. Otherwise, we are going to fall into a kind of AI colonialism, where we are using products that are built by others, and the gap just gets wider and wider in terms of the politics of makers and takers. Africa is a taker of technology, a user of technology, not a maker of technology. And that, narrative has to change fundamentally in order, for us to enact a different story of progress and development and competitiveness in the AI sphere.
Wow, thank you so much. And that's my fear as well, because keep saying AI awareness, but at the end of the day, they're just teaching people to use products that are already developed by others, and that can change anytime. I mean, you're depending on them for everything. How do we? And you mentioned human in the loop. Is there any way to train people further, or to encourage them, or to create that awareness of what kind of roles or key skills that AI cannot deliver? So we start from a point of an advantageous point while we wait for government to put infrastructures in place. Is there any way of increasing that awareness of what will AI needs human in the loop? Why would they need all the human being to do certain things? Those skills, is there a way we can develop people there?
Yeah, I think Obi, you have raised two different questions in one, and I will address that one after the other. The first one is that the concept of human in the loop is really saying that AI doesn't train itself, doesn't become what it is, just through an automated process. Of course, it improves itself, through an automated process of learning from what users are doing with it. But it doesn't become itself through automation. That is where the idea of human in the loop comes in. For example, let me give an example. So imagine that we want an AI, and again, maybe it's also worthwhile to make this clarification that AI is not generative AI. Generative AI is just a sub-component of artificial intelligence. You have, for example, what is called computer vision. Computer vision is not generative AI. It is a distinct area of artificial intelligence, and is used especially in smart agriculture and a lot of that. So let me give an example of a farmer that wants to use or an AI, product that is used to help farmers to sort, their product. If you have a farm that has, multiple products on it, so you can train the harvester, the AI-enabled harvester, to recognize, let's say, an apple from a pear, from an orange. Okay, so that can be automated. But in order to do that, you need to then identify certain characteristics, including color, for example, and train AI to recognize that this is a mango. It is different, this is how and what makes it different from an orange, from an apple, from a pear. So to do that training requires a human to feed those the data in and to train the system to recognize that this is that. So that when you then either you use a drone or whatever it is, or whatever, the system that you're enabled by AI, you can then automate that process. And a human needs to feed that data in. So that is where the whole idea of human in the loop comes in. That what AI does on the front end is something that some human are sort of training to do, at the back end. So that is the idea of human in the loop, in terms of training the capability of AI, tools and devices, and the question that have come around that is things around ethics, because some of these human in the loops have been paid very, very obscenely small amount of money to deliver that high amount of value that companies are then monetizing, because if your tool can do this and that, more people are going to use it. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is about, how we train, and this relates to your first question, how are we training, how are we enabling the AI skilled workforce? Because there is maybe not a word of difference, but a big difference between what AI tools are capable of doing, that is what AI can do, and what you can do with it. So that is where creativity comes in. That is why intuition also comes in. That is where, specific skills, comes in. So somebody can have access to ChatGPT, and they may not know that they can even do something as simple as creating an image from ChatGPT. To use a very simple example, maybe all they do is just to feed a prompt, that can tell me something about OB, or tell me something about Nigeria. So whereas that ChatGPT has the capacity to generate image, but if you don't know that you can do it and you don't know what to do with it, then you can't make use of that, possibility. So the other thing is that, even if you know that you can generate an image, what kind of image do you want to generate there? What do you want to use it for also? So I think that is a frontier or locus of training in skills, so that our skilled workforce can do more, can get more from the tool as it is. So I think that is the other aspect of it, and that is an ever-changing, frontier, because the capabilities are also, changing every few months. You can do more, but what the tool can do and what you can do with it, depends on the competence and skills of the user.
Thank you so much. That's great insight. And what do you think is the role of universities and training programs in this development of AI skills in Africa? Or is there any kind of programs out there now that people can tap into?
That's a very interesting question, because I'll be speaking to a group of university leaders next week, African university leaders. And these are some of the things we'll be exploring. I think what is clear, whether on the African continent or indeed anywhere else, is that in many ways universities are playing catch up to the disruption that has been instigated by AI. That disruption will continue at pace, it's not going to slow down. So universities need to up their pace as well, in terms of how they are responding, in terms of how they are keeping up, and how they are adapting their provisions. So certain things have to change, the way we train students, and also what we're assessing, to sort of assess the learning and the certification of learning also has to change. I think the era of essay, the age of essay, I think is long behind us. I think we are just trying to, pronounce or to postpone the funeral rites, if you like. We are keeping, the corpse, if you like, of essay in the mortuary, and waiting, for the funeral rite to be done. So because the academic essay, you can use, you can just fill the prompting and generate, good, credible sounding, essays. And so that has to change, in my view. I think we need to move. Universities have to move and change their approach. Move from knowledge testing to competence assessment and performance evaluation. We have to move from testing the know what, from know what to know how and show how. So, because employers are also not really that exercised by what do you know. Okay, it's important. Knowledge is important, and it's going to continue to be important, but it's baseline. So I think we have to move beyond, what can you do with what you know? It is not about what you know, but what can you do with it?
True.
And how can you show us, what you can do? So there needs to be a lot of emphasis on skill development, regardless of whether you're studying psychology or sociology. There needs to be, more engineering and vocational related or professional, degrees. There needs to be attention on skills, on building a skill portfolio throughout, the university programs. And I think for me, that has to be key. We have to deliver better value for our learners, because they are not just going to some of the things, they are assessing a lot of things now, through the AI. So the universities have to rethink their strategy of value delivery, their value proposition. And I think a skill portfolio has to be a part of that, So that when a university undergraduate finishes after 4 years, or in the case of African countries, 5 years, they're able to show, okay, this is my skill portfolio. Not only have I acquired a degree in this and that, these are the things I can do. These are the list of things I can do with this and that skill. So I think that
Wow.
for me has to be an important priority for universities.
Wow.
But it's a conversation that can take us a full day.
I know. Thank you so
But
much. That's the yeah.
just to mention something there, I created a tool recently on
Okay.
ChatGPT, custom GPT, that enables, and your listeners can search out Skillscape. Is free. Skillscape that enables lecturers to map their courses against how many in this particular course that I'm delivering, how much of a transferable skill is there, how much of enterprise skill is there, how much of employability skills are there. It will help them to critique
Wow.
and map what are the gaps in those skills and what can be done to bridge those gaps. So just as an example, but I think that has to be, what universities and higher education providers need to look at, actively in the
Wow.
years.
Thank you. So you said what's the name again? Skillscape?
Skillscape, yes, just like you have landscape. So it's
Landscape. Yeah.
skills,
Skillscape.
skill,
Landscape.
skill singular, and then scape together.
Wow.
Skillscape.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure the listener will enjoy that. They'll go out there to find it. Before we close out, Prof, any top tips on tools or techniques? I know you mentioned Skillscape, which is a great one for the young adults to secure their future in this AI era. Any further tips or techniques
Well, I
to
mean,
drop
so
for?
those who check out Skillscape, we find that they have many other tools there that are free as well. ROSA is for
Okay.
researchers, review for originality, significance, and rigor. You have Viva Coach that helps PhD
Mm,
students to simulate a Viva. And actually, in a voice, they can
wow.
simulate a full Viva.
Mm,
Then you have a Grant Quest that helps those who are preparing for proposals, to get feedback on their proposals and and strengthen it, and a few others. But I think what I would say is that students definitely need to be competent in prompt engineering. Prompt
mm,
engineering is a key part of what makes a difference between what you get from these AI tools. Ethical use is always going to be a big priority. Abusing AI tools either to cheat or to create fake content or deep fakes
mm.
now abounding everywhere. I think we have to raise awareness about that. So because it's sooner or later going to land you in trouble. So I say don't do it. There are a lot of positive things to do with
AI.
AI, but also environmental sustainability is an issue. If you don't need to create image unless there's a purpose for it, don't just play around, because it's a bit like littering. Just like you
Mm.
litter the street, it's also a
Straight.
bit of a digital littering. If you are just using these tools to just create things that you won't use. So I
Mm.
think I will cancel against digital littering, in that
Wow.
sense. But yes, but I think I would say every undergraduate should be competent in AI, should excuse me, so
Bless you.
should have an awareness of what those tools can do. And whether you are studying sociology or philosophy, you should learn, some basic things about what you can do, what you can use, these AI tools for.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very insightful and a lot to chew. Maybe we'll steal some of your time again in the future to go into details in other aspects. Thank you
No
so
problem
much,
at
Prof.
all. It's been a pleasure to be on your podcast, and I
Yeah,
hope the listeners enjoy it and keep it going. Obi,
I will. I'm sure they will. Thank you so much, everyone,
you're
for
welcome.
tuning in. Try to subscribe and share so you don't miss any of these wonderful discussions. So if today's dive into AI it sparked any thoughts, please drop us a comment. We may be able to feature your topics. We're always eager to hear how these ideas land into boardroom, ministries, classrooms, and living rooms across Africa and beyond. So a big thank you once again to Prof for joining us today, and to our listener. Until next time, I'm Obi. Please stay curious, stay collaborative. Let's keep building Africa's future one idea at a time. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of
Bye.
it.